All right, we are recording and we are live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. At this time, I call this meeting to order. This is the City Council Budget Meeting, Budget Committee on Government 2. My name is Irving Fox. I'm the chairman of the committee. I'd like to welcome the other members of the committee in attendance tonight. We have Councilman Knapp, Councilman Palma, Councilman Alves, and Councilman Salvatore. We also have, looking at the participant list, ex officio members, Councilman Chianese. We have Councilman Molinaro. We have Councilman Rotello. We have Councilman Tabersack, Councilman Perkins, Councilman Bazade, Councilman Esposito. We have Mayor Cabo as well. We have Councilman Camisa. We have Councilman DiGilio. And is there anyone else I missed?
Councilman Fox, I believe Councilman Tabersack is on.
Yeah, I think I mentioned.
I apologize.
Councilman
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Councilman Priola.
We have Councilman Priola. And anyone else that I missed?
Councilman Henry there as well.
And Councilman Henry. We also have the Finance Director, David St. Hilaire, and a host of department heads. And as we did with the first meeting, we'll introduce them as we roll along. The format of this meeting will be the same as the Government 1 meeting. We'll have a presentation by Mr. St. Hilaire on the numbers for each line item. We'll then turn it to committee members with questions, and then to ex officio members with questions, and then a final comment by the department head. So we'll now turn it over to Mr. St. Hilaire. We'll start with the first item, which is City Treasurer, and in the budget book, that's page number 137. So Mr. St. Hilaire, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen at this time. That's okay with you? All right, can everyone see my screen?
Mr. Can?
All right. On page 137, we have the city treasurer, and the city treasurer budget is about the same as it was last year. The mayor's proposed budget is $27,442, which represents a small reduction of $51 from the previous year, primarily due to a reduction in the workers' comp costs. All right.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the committee members regarding this item?
The only thing I would mention in here, similar to General Government 1, as typical, when an elected official is up for election, prior to that election, if a raise is to be considered, it should be considered at the time of the ad hoc. And we did propose an increase for the town clerk at the ad hoc 1, and for the mayor's office, an ad hoc 1 as well. And following in suit, the other elected official that would be up this fall would be the city treasurer. And that proposed amount was 2.5%.
Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Hilaire. Just want to remind members of the committee and ex officio members, if you do have a question, you can use the raise hand function in Zoom. I'm keeping an eye on that. So if you have your hand raised, I can call you. And also to keep your mics on mute unless you're speaking. So at this time, does anyone have any questions that's on the committee? Seeing none, any questions by any ex officio members? And then seeing none, any last comment by Mr. St. Hilaire?
No.
Okay, then we can proceed. The next item we have is also on page 137. It's the Finance Department. Once again, Mr. St. Hilaire.
Okay, and bear with me a second. For some reason, my columns are getting screwed up here. Okay. All right. The Finance Department, as proposed by the mayor, is $1,064,000. That's a small increase of $5,460. and primarily in the part-time salary area. We had some reductions in other areas that offset the part-time salary area. And the reason why part-time is going up is primarily because we have a couple part-timers. We have one regular part-timer who's a union part-timer actually. And then we have another one that retired last year, and we don't know how much longer we're going to need to have that part-time position there, but we're going to need to keep the part-time position until we fill it with a full-time position, and that's related to payroll. It's a critical position, and actually we're actively searching. We do have a candidate list, as I just found out today, in fact. So hopefully we can get that position filled. But there will be a transitional time for at least a few months that we're going to need to have both to cross train, because payroll is a very tight area, and it's critical that we have that cross training. So as you can see, there's some adjustments in other areas and some reductions as well. But the net is an increase of about 5460.
Okay, before we turn it over to Mr. Santalera, I just have one question. One area that's going down significantly budget to budget is professional services. So I know some of that is offset by part-timers going up, but maybe you can go into, what's causing kind of the underspend this year in that line item, and then where, we're going to hold that flat next year. I guess what's driving that down?
Yeah, I mean, basically that is a part of it. As we were using an outside contractual service, and as we're transitioning to fill the spot, we're going to pull back from that, and so that's really what's happening with that. We're not going to have to supplement as much with the outside contractor as we will once we fill the spot.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the committee have any questions regarding the finance department? Seeing none. Anyone ex officio have any questions regarding the finance budget? Seeing none. Any last comment by the finance director?
I mean, similar to other departments, we're struggling to keep things together with people now taking their vacation time, which they're certainly entitled to do now that places are starting to open up and they can actually go away and enjoy a vacation. But that leaves us struggling, to get the work done. And we are back in the office. We have been for a bit, and working like we have been. It just there's an awful lot of stuff happening, and thankfully HR is helping us to fill the positions with the mayor's support, but it's tough to find qualified candidates out there, honestly, and and when in the middle of this time, to find the time to cross train them, it's very difficult. So that's something that we're all contending with. But that's that's my comment. So, and I appreciate everybody's patience in trying to get through it all. And thankfully, I've got a fantastic staff. I'm just concerned that they are getting burned out, and because they've been working like crazy, filling every gap and trying to do everything they can, and working multiple tasks, and things are slipping, and I'm concerned about that, and they're concerned that they're not meeting the expectations, but things are not within our control, and that seems to be the theme of the that I hear lately from everyone, vendors and everybody else, that they just realize things are not within their control anymore. We used to believe that early in the pandemic, even among the pandemic or during the pandemic, you used to think, well, we can still manage this and control it. But the fact is, from one day to the next, you really don't know. An outbreak could happen, and the next thing you know, you get knocked back a couple, and or somebody in your office gets sick, and you're quarantined again or something, and that's always been expected. But when it starts hitting closer and closer to home, you realize it's anything can happen at any time. So it's just a tough going. Same story you guys are hearing, I'm sure. So I'm not trying to you'll hear it from every department head.
Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Hilaire. I just want to express my appreciation for the tremendous job that everyone in the finance department has done over the past year and going forward, as well as all the other city departments. We really appreciate your effort, during these difficult circumstances. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the information technology line. That's on page 143. And so back to Mr. St. Hilaire for that.
Thank you. I don't know. I do apologize that this thing is like all over the place tonight. It wasn't in the previous one. I can assure you. You guys know that, but for some reason, it's just changing my formatting every time I expand. So I'm not gonna. I'll just keep expanding. And I'll be fine. This was the largest mover that we have. Primarily because it's driven by other departments, the activity in other departments and throughout the city. And you'll see that the mayor's proposed budget is $1,692,000, and that's an increase of $136,224. And maintenance and repairs, it's the biggest driver. That's about $138,000. And that's a software maintenance, security, a whole slew of things that occurred, as we move forward. A lot of systems were upgraded, switched out. Some of it was resulting, as a result of COVID, especially security related things. Some of it was planned before COVID. But the fact of the matter is that, we're becoming more high tech, and, these things are costing more. We're becoming more cloud based. That is, it's cheap. It's cheaper in one sense, but more expensive in another sense. But the value that you're getting is so much better. Because you get that added level of security. So you can see across the board, we have many other lines are adjusted. The public safety advocates, that's really a shift between over in dispatch. The allocation changed a bit in the new contract. So that's why you see that reduction. And some of these others changes outside services, but really the biggest driver is right in here. All right, and I think Frank is probably on board if he wants to talk about it. But just before he jumps on, though, I will say a few brief words that it was really one of the things that really wasn't even mentioned, or was mentioned very little, was that the city of Danbury is transitioned to a remote operation seamlessly and quickly. And it was really remarkable on how that happened in the midst of the crisis and pandemic. And we continued to transition and without missing a beat. In fact, meeting, all the needs that came up, and meeting them very quickly. You know, we got ahead of the surge or the shortage of laptops. We got ahead of all those things, and we were able to deliver and transition our workforce to a remote workforce, and making the public safety and the health departments the priority. You know, that was never a problem for us. And really, Frank, you know, Gentile, the director of IT, and his team did an amazing job. And I can't say enough about them. I mean, and the level of security that we had to be, you know, we had to really increase the level of security because of all these things. And then when you talk to other towns and you say, well, how are things over there? What's going on? Aren't you doing this? They couldn't even adapt. They couldn't adjust because they didn't have the foundation. They didn't have the infrastructure. You had to have the infrastructure and all that stuff built into it before this happened. And thankfully we did. And you know, the number of laptops, the number of phones, and all the other things that go with it, the training and the support, you know, was just the turnaround time was just amazing. You know, and you know, but anyways, I will stop talking about that. But in the midst of all that, they've had to deal with people in the worst situations possible, and deal with their own COVID issues. So anyways, so I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Sandler. So just before I turn it over to the committee for questions, just a couple that I have. One is, you know, it's obvious in the office equipment line is where the major increase is. So I just wanted some more clarity on whether that's specifically hardware or there are other types of expenses there. And then just understanding that we're building out for kind of a remote environment, you know, what's driving the increase in next year's budget. And then kind of part of that is what would be the utility of these purchases once we're in a, say, a post-COVID world? You know, are there any plans to kind of retain some of that? Do we keep some people remote on an ongoing basis, or have those discussions not even occurred yet? I'm not understanding when COVID will actually be over. But we are making a significant investment in equipment and infrastructure. Just wanted to see what the utility of that is, kind of looking out into the future.
Yeah, I will respond, and then if it's okay with you, Frank can respond to
Sure.
some of the finer details within that line. This is a combination of both software and hardware support for this. And you know, one of the big drivers is we're in the midst of an upgrade of our core ERP systems. So that's the financial and the HR, the HRMS system. You know, we use a Tyler product, and we're upgrading our Tyler product from you know, and it's a significant upgrade. And some of these redundant, and part of the driver is that we have to adapt our chart of accounts to the state's uniform chart of accounts. Right now, you know, we're not compliant with that. But there are other drivers in here, of course, but most of the COVID-related things have been extracted. All the COVID-related things are extracted out of this and counted separately. So, you know, if there's an ongoing operational thing, you know, that's different. If we're saying, well, we're going to now go forward with this and make this our normal course of action. You know, we're not going to account for that under COVID because, for one thing, it really wouldn't be permissible under COVID. You know, we wouldn't be allowed to get the reimbursement associated with it. But the I think from an ongoing basis, I think the remote operation, it makes sense in some situation. In other sense, it just didn't work that well. There was a loss of productivity. And in other areas, there was an increase in productivity. So I think all that is being evaluated and making a determination of when, when we can, when it makes sense to use it and how it should be used. And, one size does not fit all here, because it certainly is not an ideal situation universally throughout the city, because it's very difficult to get things done. Especially when you're trying to hammer out a contract, you need to have that face-to-face interaction. And you just lose a lot when you're trying to do that via Zoom and you have connection issues and you've got this and that. It just draws out for a couple of days, and you probably get it done in a couple of hours. So, but anyways, I will. I hope I addressed most of that. Your questions, and I think Frank probably can expand more on the details of that line.
Sure. So I think one of the key things is to understand that as a city, we are migrating to software as a service for many of our enterprise applications. One of the key increases in the line for maintenance, equipment maintenance, we use that line for software maintenance, will be for the new ERP and payroll system, which is going to be Munis. We are currently on a New World, which is also a Tyra product. We're migrating to Munis. The benefits of going to software as a service are going to be twofold. One of them being disaster recovery. It's going to be handled by Tyler. So that means if there is a failure on their end, it'll automatically switch over to a system that they manage as a backup. And the other is security. They will be able to secure it much better than any municipality can. And then the other item is going to be essentially making sure that we still buy all of our licenses for our endpoint security system, which is currently based on Sophos. We have to pay for that every year. There's been an increase in the cost, a slight increase, but there's also been a need to push out more endpoints because we have all these laptops, right, that are being used remotely. In addition to that, there's funding the maintenance on and the licenses for our security appliance, which secures the wired network at the City Hall and the PD and FD and all of our offices. So that's been the driver, one of the main drivers for cost increase.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate that. Technology finance has been my day job for quite some time. So I appreciate the cost elements involved and how expensive this can get. So thank you very much for your efforts, Frank. So now I'll just turn it over to I see Mr. Salvatore, Councilman Salvatore's hand up. You have the floor with questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And seems like we're on the same page because you've asked two of the same questions that I was going to have. But the one thing I just want to point out as a new councilman, obviously, in the last meeting, we talked about, if you look at the last three lines on the budget, Mr. St. Hilaire, they're the same, but I did find and explore the other supplemental book and saw what those lines were. What would be helpful is a list of the account descriptions all in one area somewhere so that we can kind of see that. And then those little, those header issues would probably not be a big deal. But Frank, one of the questions that I still have lingering is, it almost seems like office equipment is too broad. With an IT department, it almost sounds like there should be a new cost center for software licenses. And my question was more towards hardware, because if you look at the 7-year historical report, it was going down from 2014 to about 2017 and then started spiking up. And then this year, I kind of assumed that you bought iPads and stuff like that for the city council. And so that probably meant there. But what's the city's infrastructure on hardware? Is that getting older, and is there planned replacements, or is that also playing a part in the increase here too?
That is not playing a part in this increase on that line item, because for that's a CIP project for all the hardware replacements. We're on just about a 7-year life cycle, and essentially we use capital improvement funding for that. And that includes everything from MDTs, which are mobile data terminals that are used to basically Panasonic Toughbooks and laptops used in police cars, to desktop computers that are used in the offices.
Okay. And then the last question I have, Mr. Chair, was looking at your part-time salary line. One of the things I like to do is go back to the next page and look at the positions. And I guess the first question I have is for Finance Director St. Hilaire. David, do you use FTEs or are those actually bodies? Because sometimes I see the use of 0.5 for part-time. Sometimes I see 2. Does that mean that there's 4 part-timers in that place? How do you use those lines?
Yeah, good question. We use them in a couple different ways. I mean, in this particular, I'll explain this particular situation first. Frank typically uses his part-time salaries to staff the person in the booth in the council chambers. That's what you'll use here. Now, he doesn't know exactly whether who he's going to use. Typically, there's one person, but it could be a different person, or if we can find somebody else to do it, that we may pull from another line. It could be a contract service, at some point. We just don't know. So there's not a regular person, doing this. There was, but that person has been sick. Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we all know who that person was. I'm not going to announce person on this media, but great person, fantastic. But that's what that line is for. So just to mention some of the issues, the salary descriptions and some of these lines that seem to be redundant. That's what we're going through when we're looking at the chart of accounts. Over time, some lines have been added that seem similar, but they're slightly different. And descriptions are, one department liked it this way, but generally it's only used in that one department. So we're trying to deal with all those adjustments in the new chart of accounts. And in your supplemental book, you do see descriptions on all these accounts. And I admit it would be nice if it's right next to the row that you're looking at, but unfortunately, there's so many rows, to add another column in there, it would make it so small. And but that's why we're trying to do it online. And I think we will get to that point where you can look at it right across and then click on it, and you'll see the description right there. And that's what we hope to get to, because these books, they're nice, but and some people still prefer, having a hard book. But I think from if you look at online, you can look at as much or as little as you choose.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Anyone else on the committee with questions? I
Mr.
don't
Chair.
see any. Mr. Councilman Alves.
Thank you, sir. Through you to Mr. Frank Gentile, please. Frank, again, I think just like everybody else has brought up, it's that office equipment line that, made me pause and have some reserve. And when you mentioned, it also includes software, even took a step back, especially with the talks of going to an SaaS model and bringing in new vendors. And I understand the logistics nightmares and that. Do you feel that gap gives you enough to succeed? My biggest concern with, we're moving into software as a solution and into that realm is the data security. When we talk about anything with technology, we see the breaches that have happened all over in the world, but in this country, specifically with municipal governments, you see people hacking, getting in, holding for lack of a better term, quote unquote, a city hostage. How are, the funds you're receiving being fed into security that way? We have a third party. Do you have enough for us to be successful, but not just successful, compared to our local peers, but we should be leading the way as one of the largest cities in the state and successful city. I'd hate to have us see a breach that can be circumvented. Maybe it costs us a little bit more money, but it's a conversation we should have here. This is serious, and it's the future. I want to, and I'm sure, that's probably not probably your number one concern being in this helm, right? Most of us who are in the tech sphere, Irving, it was nice to hear you say you're in tech and finance as well. Can you just go in a little bit more on that and how much of the budget goes into our security?
Sure. So first off, thanks for the question. I think that's a great question. The city runs a annual, security review with an outside consultant. He's a CISSP. He does this. He's been doing this for us for about 7 years. Anything that he finds, we do corrective action and we get on resolving it the same year. But in addition to that, currently we are migrating from a state-of-the-art security platform for our security appliance to a even better, technology. And I don't want to go into the technology specifics too much because it's a public meeting. I mean, we could talk, offline about that because I don't want to announce exactly what we're doing to everyone out there. But approximately what we spent, we spent well over $120,000 on a new security appliance that is state of the art, that it's being integrated currently, and it's replacing a system that is still state of the art. Why we did that is because it was on advice from our security consultant and also from other partners that indicated that would be the best path to take in order to protect ourselves from ransomware and malware on our wired network and also on our Wi-Fi network as well. We consider security. I consider security, IT security, the most important thing that I do. I'm personally involved in it in every aspect of it in every enterprise software that the city uses. Do I think that we spend enough? I think we are adequately spending on security software and on security hardware. It is a big part of our CIP budget, and it's also a part of the maintenance budget. Now, to address your concern about the maintenance line, that's a maintenance line not just for hardware maintenance, but also for software maintenance. That's how it's been historically used. Should it be separated? Probably. But historically, that's how we've used that line. And also, the cost has not gone down over time. Obviously, the cost for not only hardware maintenance, and an example of hardware maintenance would be maintenance on servers that need extended warranties, switches, and then software maintenance would be every single enterprise application that we have, everything from our receivables system to our ERP, our payroll system, our time and attendance system. We pay maintenance on all of that, and not just for the license to use, but also for support, which the city does require on its systems.
Great. I can connect offline and have other conversations on efficiencies and possible future implications of machine learning and AI and how that can affect the budget on a local government scale. Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Alves. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, any ex officio members have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Chini's?
thank you. Just really quick to Frank, if you can. What is the 311 Public Safety Advocate Tech?
They are the contractors that answer the phone for 311. They handle requests and reports from citizens concerning potholes, neighborhood blight, items like that.
That's a 311 line.
Correct.
They do police fire too?
They essentially do 311, which is neighborhood blight, potholes, street issues, things like that constituents would actually report. It's considered citizen engagement, and they do direct entry into a system, a work order system.
So the 911 operator would be a different line item then?
That's a different line item, completely different.
Thank you.
Through the chair, they're the ones sitting in the booth in the lobby as you walk into the PD.
That's the 311 people.
those are the 311 people. They're kind of dual, that's why we call them public safety advocate techs, because they're performing a dual role.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Chini's. Any other ex officio members?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Information Technology Director, Frank. Frank, you've heard it all already. You know, a lot of us are concerned about data security. You know, systems are infiltrated on a regular basis. It depends what you do when you're in there, and it also depends on what you can take out when you leave. In your opinion, do you think, and it was asked already, are you confident with the multi-level of security and redundancy within our systems to ensure the safety of our networks citywide?
To answer that, it would be yes, I am. We have multiple redundancies, so we do multiple backups. We have multiple save positions for key applications, for all applications that we host. In addition to that, we do security audits on an annual basis, but we also do behavioral audits on email usage. Why is that important? Because we need to understand if a city employee is going to click on a payload. Are they going to click on a link or a attachment on an email and then cause a ransomware issue for their computer and potentially for our systems? Because nothing is going to protect you completely from a zero-day threat. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. So we do that multiple times a year, and then I do one-on-ones with any employee that might be, clicking on a link and they're not following the process and the training that we do provide. I'll speak with them offline and make sure that they understand the risks and understand what to look for in an email that could be from a threat. So I am, satisfied with what we're spending and what we're doing, but I'm also constantly improving what we do. That's why we do a security audit every year with an outside vendor. That's why I attend the regional meetings with other municipalities. And I try to learn about what is cutting edge for IT security, what we can do better, and we try to do better. We're in a process of continuous improvement every single month, every single day, because with IT security, it changes every day. It changes every week. I'll give you an example. We're just putting in an additional endpoint security software for all wired computers. I won't go into detail which one it is, but we're putting it in, and it will be deployed during the next month because we want to have an additional layer on the endpoints. Now, the struggle is making all these security softwares and systems work in a way that's not going to prevent folks from being able to do their job. That's always been a struggle, but it's something that hasn't stopped us from being more secure and adding more, technology to our security stack.
Okay, thank you for the information. I mean, even myself, I noticed that I get less spam type mail to my City Hall email. I mean, I unsubscribe to a lot, but I get way less than before. So I guess some of those systems, some of those mechanisms that you have in place are working. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perkins. Any other questions from ex officio members? Seeing none. Frank, do you have any just final comments on your department for this year?
And again, I just want to point this out as my opinion. I'm very grateful for the funding that the council and the citizens provide. I think that in IT, like everyone's been saying, IT security is our biggest focus right now. I do believe going to a software as a service model for ERP and our payroll system is a smart thing, simply because it's going to better secure those systems and make them more available. In addition to that, I just want to point out that, we as a city are doing a much better job with our IT spend than I think many other cities are doing. I mean, the last time I looked, we were on the bottom third of spend for similar sized cities in the Northeast as I tried to do that analysis. And I believe that's still the case. So we make really good use of the dollars that we have, and we don't make things go to waste. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thanks for your efforts, and thank you very much for your input in this meeting. It's most appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing should be noted is that we did have, as a result of one of Frank's IT audits, we did have required training this week for the staff, and which was well attended to address all those, email issues, the scams and all these other kind of things. And really, there's so many different ways that, if somebody wants to get into your system, they can. So we try to, do everything we can to anticipate that. But it's a constant struggle. I mean, these guys are creative. They're constantly attacking, and you read about it in the papers all the time. And as I think several council members have already mentioned, that they're right to be concerned about security, and we're scared to death about it, and that's why we do commit the funds to it. We're constantly working with our consultants, and we're concerned about our data and everybody else's information and data. So thankfully, Frank and his team are right on top of it. So we don't shortcut it. I would encourage you to look at the CIP side of things too, because we do have a regular budget in there each year for that as well.
Thank you, David. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which is independent audit. That's back on page 137. So, Mr. St. Hilaire.
Independent audit, page 137, is proposed by the mayor, is flat at 45,000. That no change from the current year. It's certainly the actual spend may be a little higher. We don't know because of how things are changing each year with the GASB requirements and COVID requirements, and now with the all the funds associated with the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan. But we'll know it when we get there, and if we need more, we'll let you know. But that's what we're putting in for this year.
Thank you, Mr. St. Hilaire. Any questions from the committee members regarding independent audit? Seeing none, any ex officio members have a question regarding independent audit? Seeing none, Mr. St. Hilaire, any final comments?
No final comments other than, with as you all know, the audit is running late because there's transition over at the Board of Ed, and they struggled to get their stuff over to us during the fall. They had an incredible amount of change. First, their director of finance, they were without a director of finance for a few months over there, and then their assistant director of finance left, and that was during 19, and then they went right into COVID, and then going into the audit for 20, they realized that they were switching systems, their financial systems. And so they had a tough time pulling all their numbers together. We worked with them quite a bit. My staff literally worked with them for hundreds of hours, and the auditors. And, we're going to pull it together over the next few weeks and get it out. But, it's tough because the auditors are also trying to pull their staff back together, but it took a while to get the information from the Board of Ed.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which is Bureau of Assessments. That's on page 148. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Bureau of Assessments. All right, the overall budget for Bureau of Assessments is going up to $560,000 as proposed by the mayor. That's an increase of about $18,300 roughly. Most of that is in part-time salaries. We have 2 part-timers in there. If you notice, there's a reduction, however, in the regular salaries. So, it's kind of a wash. that reduction in regular salaries is kind of offset by some of the increases, the contractual increases in there as well. So, you know, the big change is instead of having one part-timer, now we have 2 part-timers in there. And, you know, and we're not fully funded all the open positions in regular salary. The other thing on the CIP side of things for the assessors is that we're, you know, we put money in for a reval. And it's about 260,000. Chances are the reval will be, it could be more than that. Likely a full reval is, but it's highly unlikely that they're going to do a full reval given, you know, COVID and everything else. So it's not going to be, it's probably going to be somewhere in between what it costs of a full reval, which is 500,000 to 600,000, and what we would typically do, which is, you know, around 300,000.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on Bureau of Assessments? Seeing none, any questions from any ex officio members on Bureau of Assessments?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Cheney's.
thank you. Just really quick. Either the assessor can answer it or maybe David. The assistant assessor, is that a new person in that position?
No,
Because it says it's partially funded. Is that a new person?
actually, I'll if Donna Murphy, I see that she's on through the
We
chair.
can wait until she gives it at the end too. She has to say it.
No, that's fine. No, right now that position has not been filled. The only full-time position that we filled was the field inspection person. So the assistant assessor is partially funded. Right now, we did a lot of reorganizing in the department to try to make it as efficient as we could. Within, I combined a position, and we had and we have a new part-time person who's working 29 hours a week that's doing more of the clerical work. So right now we're good. I kind of want to play it by ear to see whether at what point we need that position. But right now we're in good shape. We're accomplishing quite a bit in the department.
Okay, so you haven't really advertised it yet.
No, it has not been.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have, you know, we've done a reorg. We have a new person in there, actually 2 new people in there. So we're going to get those adjusted, you know, acclimated, and then we'll see where we are from that point. But right now, things are getting done that we need to get done at the pace that we need to have it. And, you know, I'm sure at some point, you know, Donna will determine, well, you know, I really need to have this filled. And then we'll, you know, decide whether, or she'll decide whether that, you know, whether it needs to be this position or that position. And maybe we need to, you know, reorg that. I don't know, but she'll do the assessment, no pun intended, of the situation at that point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cheney's. Any other questions from ex officio members? Seeing none, I can turn it over to Donna Murphy. Any final comments on your department?
I think, so I've been there almost exactly 6 months now, and I think we're really moving in the right directions. We're doing a lot of cleanup, streamlined a lot of things that have been being done manually. There's technology that is part of the programs we already have that we're taking advantage of. So I really think we're moving in the right direction. I've got everybody's back in the office working full-time in-house now, which has improved our efficiency as well. So I really, I'm comfortable so far with the changes that we made. And I think the department's moving definitely in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Donna. And thank you very much for your efforts during the year and your input into this meeting. Thank you. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move to Board of Assessment Appeal, which is on page 152. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Yeah, as proposed by the mayor, it's $6,800 flat with the current year.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from ex officio members? Seeing none, any final comment on that item? I think that would be Scott Ferguson.
Okay, tax on page 156 is tax collector.
Tax collector.
Tax collector, and the budget for the tax collector is $653,000 as proposed by the mayor. That's an increase of $9,912. And the primary driver is in regular salaries. Most of the people in the office are part of the BMEA union. And you can see that amount is offset by several decreases throughout the department.
Okay, any questions from the committee regarding the tax collector? Seeing none, any questions from ex officio members on the tax collector? All right, seeing none, do we have Mr. Ferguson?
I am here.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Yep. Scott, do you have any final comments to make on the tax collector?
No, I just want to thank everyone for considering the budget proposal for our department. A shout out to my staff for one of the most difficult years we've had. I think most staffs are dealing with that. And also a thank you to the public. They've been incredibly cooperative and resourceful in getting in their tax payments. A few people get upset, but that's to be expected. But overall, they've been great, and the collections reflect that. So I think both my office and the public should be commended for what they've done this past year, and hopefully we'll all get to see each other soon again. But thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for all of your efforts during the year and the team and your input into the meeting tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
And we also want to do a shout out or special thanks to, your staff has had a tough year. As everyone knows, we lost a member of our finance team and our tax collector team over the weekend, Ms. Sharon Piak. And it was a tough loss. A tremendous employee, always smiling, incredibly smart, friendly to the public. She just got a promotion. It's such a loss, and our hearts and prayers go out to her family, and and certainly to the tax office.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Hilaire. Also on page 156, we have the constables, Mr. St. Hilaire.
Yes, the constable really performs an important function for the city. It's primarily under the tax collector's office, as he needs to collect certain taxes or anything like that, or encourage people to make payments. They'll send out the constable, but the constable is also used in other areas and so we, that's what this line is for.
Okay, Mr. Salvatore, do you have a question regarding the constables?
Yeah, actually, David, interesting you say that the constables do a lot of work for the tax collector. But I'm looking in the supplemental book, and I noticed that there has been $0 from 2014 until being proposed $1,000 this year, and a lot of their expenses show up under the city council. Is this just a trying to realign to show where the work is being done? And I don't remember there being a decrease in the city council line if you're showing that they're now that you're accounting for the work in the tax collector's office.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. They do more work than what's showed here, because the number that you're seeing here and the number that you mentioned is really for them to perform like the delivery services, delivering of the books and some of these other things that they do for, the council books and whatnot. And the $1,000 is kind of for things like that. The big part of what they do is really the function that they perform for the tax office. And really it's an offset for, you don't really see that broken out in here because it's an offset to the revenue they bring in. So it's the cost of that revenue, similar to some of these other collection firm type of things that we do. You don't necessarily see it broken out because it's netted to the revenue. So that's why you see it like that.
Is that normal to net something like that to the revenue?
It depends on how it is. So on most things we don't, but we have a line. It doesn't show up like that on this because this isn't all the detail that goes under it. Like, for example, when you see, and I think in this detail, you see it, the reimbursement of expenses. When you see something like that, typically in a roll up, you wouldn't even see it. It would just net out. But when we do a breakout, you'll see reimbursement of expenses as one line, as an offset to whatever line it's tied to. And that's, we like to break out the lines, but sometimes, they don't, for everybody to see. And there is a breakout for this. It just wasn't broken out for this purpose. So, because it's falling under another line, but we can certainly get those numbers for you, the costs associated with constables.
Okay, thank you. That would be nice.
I mean, yeah, we can do that. And Scott's still on the line, so he can assist us with that as well.
Thank you, Councilman Salvatore. Any further questions from the committee on the constables? Any questions from the ex officio members? If not, any last comment on the constables, Mr. St. Clair? No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we do break out every line because we want to see we don't lump anything in together. It's just difficult to follow if it's lumped in, especially when it's an offset to something else.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to purchasing, which is on page 161. Mr. St. Clair?
161 is purchasing, and their budget is $293,000. Excuse me, that's an increase of $19,855. The primary driver is in salaries, and that's due to a position that was partially funded in HR is now, it's no longer split between purchasing and HR, it's fully funded in purchasing. And so, that's, there was a clerical position that was split between the two departments, and you'll see a reduction in HR on the other side of that.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee on purchasing? Seeing none, any questions from the ex officio members on purchasing?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Wattell.
Yeah, thanks. Through you to Chick. I saw him earlier. I'm assuming he's still there.
Yep, I'm here.
Chick, we're going to be spooling up purchasing for the Career Academy, and I'm already seeing your bids going out in the legal notices. Are you going to be doing most of that, or is the board going to be doing that, or is Antonio? How is that going to work, and how is that going to affect your department?
Well, the bid that we have out now is for the architectural services. And my understanding is that the construction is not going to be bid through us. I'm not sure how that's being handled.
I figure that, but how about office equipment and all the kinds of stuff that has to go into a school? I mean, a bazillion classrooms and PCs and electric boards and, I mean, carpeting, well, maybe not the carpeting, but all the, say, non-affixed fixtures, would that go through you or would that go through somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Normally it
Okay.
would. This appears to be a little bit unique, so I'm not sure. I don't want to
Okay.
misspeak on that.
All right, maybe if, you know, 6 months we can touch base or something like that and get a
Sure.
better handle on that. Thank you, Chick, and thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Rotella. Any further questions from?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Cheney.
Thank you. Just to David again. Can you go over the organization of the payroll of their salaries again? Because you added that one new assistant for the purchasing assistant, and it's a fully funded position. So is that the full amount we pay is 34?
Bear with me a second. I'm pulling up the page.
Page 162, because then if that was the case, the 21 budget should be 3.5, right? Not 0. And the increase should have been 0.5, not 1.
268.
162.
Yeah, no, I got that. I got that. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's why it went up 1. It really, yeah, it should have been 0.5, but it was added in there. It should be 0.5 from last year, changed from last year to this year, and same on the other side.
So it should be 0.5 equals the 1 full.
Yeah.
So last year was only half of the 34, and now it's the full 34 or 35.
Correct.
Okay.
So from a presentation standpoint, their last year should have been 3.5, and then going to four FTEs, and you know, on it'll be a similar adjustment, I'm sure, on the HR side. So
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Cheney. So I just, for clarity, Mr. St. Hilaire, so what you're
Yeah.
saying is that the dollars in the budget presentation were moved, but not the headcount in the presentation?
No, it's just the presentation of the head count. And you know, so it's gonna, the bottom line head count will still be the same. It's just not presented properly in purchasing from year to year. So last year really should have reflected 3.5 and then this year 4. So that represents a half a FTE change in purchasing, and that's why you would see that adjustment of 20,000. And then conversely, something similar on the HR side.
Right.
But thank you for pointing these things out, because we do try to, you know, we will make the adjustments for the adopted budget. We try to catch all these things. Unfortunately, you know, on a 500-page document, we miss a couple things.
Just through the chair. Also, David, the same issue, I think, is happening with the office and office equipment. I noticed that on some other lines as well.
So it's the descriptions are off.
Yeah. For
Okay.
some reason it got cut off. That's all.
All right. I know Dan's on the call because he's texting me as well. So
Yeah, it's happening several places.
Okay,
Thank
good. We'll catch that. And on the constables, I'm being told that the delinquent taxpayer it's really on top of it. So we're treating it like I just want to. We must track that separately. We paid 44,000 to constables in 2019, but that's paid off the top. Not off the top, but whoever the delinquent taxpayer is, there's a maximum we can charge is 15%, because so 15% gets charged, and that goes so if the delinquent taxpayer owes $100. Actually there's going to be $100 plus a 15% additional charge, delinquency charge, and then that delinquency charge would go to the constable. All right, but to answer your question, so the net cost to us is 0, but there must be a line item that shows where that 44,000. I don't know specifically that line item, but we know it's 44,000. So somebody knows what the line number is. I don't know that specific number. That's all I'm telling you. but it's 44,000 that we spent on constables for that service in 2019.
Okay,
We
thanks.
we can get you the details.
44,000?
44,000 for that collection service, if you will, from constables.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, since he brought that up, can I just follow up on that?
Yeah, Mr. Salvatore.
I'm sorry, this was the last one. So it just seems to me that the expenses should be shown. And anybody who knows how to read budgets could look at the revenue side and see the
I agree with you.
offsetting.
I agree
Yeah.
with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. And we will work on showing that in future budgets. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. What we would show is I will work on making sure that's transparent in next budget. Okay. I agree that should show.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Any further
Good point.
questions on purchasing from the ex officio members? Seeing none, we'll just turn it over. Mr. Volpe, if you're still on, just a final word on the department and the budget. Mr.
Yep,
Volpe?
no, I'm fine with the budget. I mean, it was an extremely challenging year with COVID, interesting year. I mean, we were very busy in the beginning, supporting public safety, health department, IT, all those purchases, the PPE in the beginning. And now that we're coming out of it, we've been very busy supporting public works. They have a tremendous amount of construction activity that's flowing through right now. So, but we're doing okay, and I'm fine with the budget.
Chick was in there constantly during this whole thing, during, and as he is now. Nothing really changed as a Chick. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that you've slacked off now, but, to make sure everything, everybody had everything that they needed and like overnight and all this, the people had to, whether it's Frank or Chick, you had to have these key people. And it was really a bare bones people that were there that had to make sure that somebody was there to deliver this stuff, get them set up, place the order, or do all this. And you couldn't do a lot of that stuff remotely. You had to be there. And sometimes they were just out in front of City Hall handing it out to people. And it was actually funny at times, but anyways.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Volpe, for all your efforts during the year and your input into the meeting. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll turn to human resources, which is on page 186.
Yes,
Mr.
human
St. Hilaire?
resources. And Ginny, I did speak to Ginny earlier, and she said she wished she could be here. She just couldn't make it tonight. And but her budget is $391,000 as proposed by the mayor. That's down $24,383. A big component of that is something that we just spoke about in purchasing. That's $17,000. That's about half the position. Of course, there's a little bit of salary stuff in there too from the DMEA. But we had some reductions or movement between a couple lines, and that there was a net reduction between the civil service line and employment testing, and a couple other lines were adjusted. Professional, oops, my apologies. That was the if anybody caught any numbers on there, that was the number for the American Rescue Plan. So big numbers on that page. But anyways, the employment testing is going up, and this was primarily due to the historical spend trend. So we adjusted some of those, but at the end of the day, they went down by about 24,000.
Okay, any questions from the Committee on Human Resources? Seeing none, any questions from the ex officio members on human resources? Okay, seeing none, we don't have Jenny unfortunately, but David, any final comments?
I can handle many of those questions. I mean, she does a lot of testing. You know, there's, you know, the drug testing, but the initial testing, you know, for employment purposes, and the regular, just the stuff that happens there. It's a lot of things go through her office that, you know, there's a lot of activity that you don't really, it boils down to these lines, but there's a tremendous amount of things that happen. And also we're undergoing negotiations right now. You'll see that impact not only HR, but you see that in labor negotiations, and you'll see that, you know, in corporation counsel too. So, you know, lots of things happening.
Thank you, David. And again, just thanks to Jenny for her efforts throughout the year.
Yeah, tremendous job. She kept everybody informed. And if you guys, every week or every couple of weeks, we always had this mandatory thing that we had to read, and COVID related, to make sure we're all informed on what the procedures were. You know, to ensure that everybody was compliant, and you know, we had to make sure that we checked off that everybody was read it or you know, went through the checklist, and we had to provide it back to her. And so, you know, there's a list of those things throughout the process to keep people informed about what was going on. You know, whether it was about the safety protocols or anything else. So, you know, and it still goes on, you know, because as you know, the state revised, made several revisions throughout the course of the year, and it was paramount to keep everybody informed. Unfortunately, you know, that through the health department, then HR, you know, HR communicated that out to everybody. It was very helpful. You know, everybody really appreciated that.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to retirement administration, back on page 138. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Yep. So this is on page 138. What this really entails is we always have costs associated with retirement that we really can't assign anywhere else. You know, typically if it's a retirement cost associated with one plan or another, it'll get assigned to that particular plan. But if there are general costs, because we're exploring this or that, we'll assign it to here. For example, we're working with the school on their deferred comp, you know, plan. And so we ended up charging it here. You know, and certain other things. So, you know, even though they were going to be part of the general employees pension plan, or for those that were part of general employees pension plan, we charged it there. But for those that were part of the city's plan, but not part of the general employees pension plan, we charged it here. So this is if we can't charge it any place else, we'll charge those retirement type of things to this area. All right.
Okay. Does any member of the committee have any questions regarding retirement administration? Any ex officio members have a question? All right, seeing none, David, any last comment?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to labor negotiations. That's on page 164. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Labor negotiations is flat with the current year. I actually went down 200,000. It's the mayor, as proposed by the mayor, is $145,000.
Okay. Any committee members have any questions? No. Any ex officio members have any questions regarding
Mr.
labor?
Chair.
Mr. Councilman Cheney's.
Thank you. To David, what contracts are coming up this time?
Well, we have, let's see, DMA was settled, right? So we have, well, the police contract is up, and Teamsters is up, and what else am I missing? Because the Teamsters just went through 1 year. I think that's it. Oh, well, DMEA is the only one that we have really settled. Oh, and the fire is settled, but the so it's police and Teamsters that we've got to resolve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chini's. Any further questions? Seeing none, maybe just Mr. Attorney Pinter is on the line. Any last comment on labor negotiations?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't have anything further too much beyond what David had indicated. We do receive the outside counsel summaries and invoices. We review them carefully. We have our in-house labor counsel who also handles those and reviews those. And then we use this account in a cautious manner to try to handle all the things we need, but keep it, cost contained. And we're very happy and pleased with our outside labor counsel people that we do need to retain at some point in time, at different points in time. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Les, for your management of this area in the last year. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, just a question for Mr. Santalaire. The next item on my list is general government discount, which looks like it has a zero now on page 314.
Yeah, that's a catch-all for discounts. And see, we suppress certain lines and that really and sometimes a lot of these are on a filter. So sometimes we try to catch all the clicks, and we probably should have just rolled this up into something else. But
okay, no, we'll move on. The next item we have is general government employee benefits. That's on page 312.
Yeah, so this is where we have kind of a catch-all for any of those other expenditures for salary benefits. The costs associated with the elected officials would be in here. Any other contractual increases, contributions to deferred comp, anything like that. We do have a deferred comp plan. So that's part of it too. So this is a catch-all for that. If we think that there may be some raises that are not otherwise listed or may be considered, we'll put it in here. We don't put it in the department's budget simply because we don't want it to be indicated that a raise may be considered or whatever, or let's say an upgrade or a change or a reorg in the department. So this is where we would put those potential adjustments. And a lot of times they go unused, but we have to have a place to pull the funds if they're needed. If the mayor or the department does move forward with some adjustments within their department.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee on this item? Any questions from the ex officio members on this item? And any last words, Mr. Santalaire?
No.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to FICA. The next several items are on page 309. So I'll turn that back to Mr. Santalaire.
Okay, so yeah, there's actually the FICA is covered in a couple of different areas, 309 and 417. The one on 417 is really related to the internal service funds, but the one on 309 is the one on the general fund. That's going to go up by 35,000. The amount as proposed by the mayor is 1,786,000, an increase of 35,000. And that's driven by the salary base. I'm sorry, I just scrolled. I didn't mean to scroll. So that's driven by the salary base. And the amounts to the right of that is really represents a consolidation of all the other funds. So I'm not going to scroll over there because you'll see this again in the water fund, the sewer fund, the ambulance fund, probably not the ambulance fund, but the animal control fund. They're all going to have a line on them for Fica. And when you add up all those FICA lines, you're going to see the total equal into the internal, the internal service fund. All right.
Okay, any questions about FICA from anybody on the committee? Any questions on FICA from any ex officio members? Okay, we'll move on. The next item we have is pension expense, which is on page 309 and 423.
Okay, so the pension expense is, as proposed by the mayor, is $14,819,600. That's an increase of approximately $1.1 million. Now the pension is, going up, and it's just a lot of it has to do with the change of this year has to do with the change of the table on the mortality table. There is a new mortality table out for public employees. Recently came out. I think it was January of 19, and that's what we're required to use. So we have to use it. It basically indicated the public employees live longer. So that means there's a higher cost. And combine that with all the other things that are going on, aside from this past year, the plan performance, it just, the plan is going up. Or the costs, the ADAC, they call it, the actuarially determined employer contribution is going up.
Okay. Anyone on the committee have any questions regarding pension expense? Seeing none, any ex officio members have any questions on pension expense?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chini's.
thank you. Just to David, really quick.
Yeah.
The pension expense includes both the 401k contributions and the defined benefit is in there?
Yeah, that represents the combined of the two. And let me see if I got the combined of the two then is right over here. So this is where you're going to see the 401k is right over 387 roughly. And then the total pension expense for the city is 14.9. So the total of the two is 15.3. That's the DB and the DC. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions from the ex officio members? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is workers' compensation. That's on pages 309 and 421. Mr. St. Hilaire?
Yep. Workers' comp is, as proposed by the mayor, is 700,000. That's an increase of $163,650.
Okay, so before we go to the committee, just I guess an obvious question might be, what would be driving such a large percentage increase in that account?
Well, I know Dan is on the line here, so I'll let Dan address that. Dan?
Hey, Mr. Garrett?
Sure. The 8004 accounts are actually is heard by the Workers' Comp Commissioner, but it's really for heart and hypertension for police and fire. It's a special law in Connecticut. What we're seeing is an increase in claims there. And in addition, we're hiring out our workers' comp carrier, Kerma. They also do our liability to administer this for us. So they'll go to all the hearings. They have a little more expertise, obviously a much larger staff to handle this. Right now, Corporation Counsel is, we're sucking up a lot of their time in administrating this with all the additional hearings. So part of that is administration of it, and also part of it is increasing claims.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Garrick. Any committee members have questions for Mr. Garrick or Mr. St. Hilaire on this item?
Yeah.
Any ex officio members? Okay, thank you very much.
You know, workers' comp is one of those areas that it requires an incredible amount of time, and it just made sense for us to farm this out to those that do it all the time. And so we're very pleased that we're able to find, that they're doing this, and because it does take, as Dan mentioned, a lot of time from Dan, a lot of time from, not only Dan, but Andy and Kelly in my office and Diane and Corporation Counsel. So you're really tying up 4 people and, over several months and several hours and just to try to resolve a particular case. And, it's, and every case is unique. It's not like a cookie cutter type of thing. There's some things that are, pretty common, but every case you got to look at it, as a unique situation. So.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Once again, I'll just remind everyone, if you're not speaking, just to keep yourselves on mute. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. The next item is state unemployment comp, and that's on pages 309 and 417. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Yeah. On workers' comp, the budget is, as proposed by the mayor, I'm sorry, I keep blocking that, 55,000. That's a decrease of about 5,000. It's that can fluctuate at any one time, but 55 we're comfortable with.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Any questions from the ex officio members? Okay, with that, we'll move on. The next item is employee health and life insurance. That's on pages 309 and 417.
Yeah. So, yep, 309. This is the post-employment benefits. This really talks about OPEB and your retirees and all that kind of thing. We see an increase of $999,090. Basically 10 million. I'm sorry, I keep blocking that. $10,334,500 is the proposed by the mayor. And let's see, the risk benefit side of things is $10,414,479, an increase of $522,394. For a total increase for the 8,006 employee health and life insurance of 20 million, total budget of 20,748,979, a total increase of $1,521,000.
Okay, any questions from the committee on employee health and life insurance? Any questions from the ex officio members on employee health and life insurance?
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Cheney's.
Thank you. Through the chair. again to David, so on pages 309, 417,
Yeah.
if you add page 423, it's a $3.2 million increase for those total. What's driving that increase? That's pretty substantial.
It is. It is substantial. You got a few factors driving it. And through the chair, I'm going to ask Dan to pipe in at any time here. But, you know, you've got a $500,000 increase related to OPEB alone. All right. And you basically have a $500,000 related to the retiree health insurance. You got a $500,000 related to actually 600,000 related to employee health insurance. So there's 1.6 there. And what was the number you're driving at?
Oh, 423. Page 423.
Yeah, 423. Okay, yeah. So there's 1.6 between those three numbers. I mean, you know, it's really 1.1 related to retiree stuff, and another $500,000 or roughly 600,000 for just the employee insurance. So, you know, that's really what's driving this, and it's not. Wish we could say, you know, it's COVID driving it. The COVID has nothing to do with OPEB, and it really has to do with the, you know, the cases. You know, it's I'm sure COVID has some impact to this. I think I did ask Dan about the impact of COVID and, you know, what's hitting us. And we have to go through that, by the way, anyways. And we did, the last time we checked, it was only like 125,000. And that was back in December, you know, because most of COVID stuff is being covered elsewhere. But the, you know, the real driver to these increases have to do on a case-by-case basis. You know, if you have a few cancer cases, that would drive your number up quite a bit. You know, but it has to be more than what we typically would expect. We always anticipate that you're going to have a few bad cases of whatever. And if you're more than, you know, if you have a few cases more than what you typically expect, your number is going to be thrown off quite a bit. And so that's what we've been seeing. And here's where it could be related to COVID is that, and I'm sure some of those, some of you folks that are familiar with the health industry, you're hearing it as well, is because of the delays or deferral of health treatments and all these other things, that's what's probably causing these increases. If they didn't get the health treatment or didn't catch it early enough, now instead of something costing minimal or not being significant in terms of cost or in health consequence, is now very serious and very costly. And because there's a year delay. And so, you know, those kind of things are things that, you know, are what we're seeing and what we're concerned about. Dan, do you have anything through the chair? Do you have anything you want to add to that?
The only other thing to keep in mind is that the numbers you're talking about on 423, actually 417 to 423 are a combination of all the funds. So those later numbers in the 400 pages, that's the internal service fund. So what we're looking at right now is the general fund share of those figures. And then we'll see that again in water, sewer.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Dan. Yeah.
So I'll talk about some more on the increases once we get to the internal service fund as a more global number.
Yeah, and that is a very good point, is that the internal service funds, and that's why I try not to show it together here because it would almost seem like you're double counting. So when we do talk about the internal service funds, you have to recognize that it's already been considered within the general fund, the sewer fund, the water fund, the animal control, and the ambulance fund. All those funds, you know, when you take the individual pieces of those funds, you're going to find will add up to whatever you see in the internal service fund.
And just one question, but we're self-insured for the most part, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Cheney. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to union welfare, page 309.
Okay, union
And
welfare.
417.
All right, union welfare, mayor's proposed budget is $1,687,512, a decrease of about $12,000. And this is basically the insurance related to Teamsters.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Any questions from the ex officio members? Okay, seeing none, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Garrick for his efforts and his input into tonight's meeting. The next item will be risk management, 310.
Okay, risk management. I'm going to look at the total risk management, 810 here, and then I'll kind of summarize. 810, as proposed by the mayor, $2,088,630, a slight decrease of $13,000. And, you know, not a, really, it's just a couple items in here, but because most of it is administered through the internal service funds, workers' comp, and internal service benefits. Overall, workers' comp declined by $60,000. And Dan, if you want to chime in on this, you can discuss the individual line items through here if you want. But I'll move this over to here so you can review. I mean, you can see the salaries are declined a bit, and that's in part because we're not filling a position, and we're you know, there's only a portion of the year that we I think we're only budgeting for that position for a portion of the year. And insurance is going up a little bit. Some of the insurances are going up. Let me see what the subcategory is here. Oh, okay. Some deductibles. So I got to shrink this a bit. Okay. All right. So some of our insurances are going up a tad here. These are all just insurances and deductibles and all that kind of thing. The big one that's going down is our liability deductible. All right. And anything else you want to add, Dan?
Again, this is the city's share of
right
of everything, and our liability premium went up by 5%. Fortunately, it's the same carrier for our workers' compensation. All they do is Connecticut municipalities, and they know what you know, where we stand. So they shaved on the workers' comp premium to offset the increase in the liability premium.
Right. So that's why we're able to basically almost, you know, do it. We netted a few lines. Some lines went up, some lines went down, and at the end of the day, it was net neutral, at least for the city side of things. Now that's a good point, Dan. Thank you for bringing that up. The internal service funds not only impacts the other funds that we mentioned, the general fund, sewer, water, you know, animal control, ambulance, but it's also the other funds that may go in and out of here. You know, there's some that maybe the what the school and some of these other, who else may go in and out of there, Dan?
Well, on the benefit side, you'll see payroll deductions when we get into
Oh, yeah, of course.
personal service fund.
Individual payroll, individuals payroll deduction, right? Okay.
Okay, do we have any questions from the committee on risk management? Any questions from the ex officio members on risk management? Okay, seeing none, any last comments on that? Dan or David? No. Okay, with that, we'll move on. Interest on debt, which is on page 311. The next several items are on page 311.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at I'll just kind of read off the numbers and look at them in total, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, interest on debt. And this one is, let's see, you got okay. First one is not the school. So the interest on the debt for as mayor has proposed, is $3,097,207. And the interest on debt for the school is $1,241,404. And the redemption on debt is $10,600,198 as proposed by the mayor. And redemption on debt for the school is $2,773,393. And for a total increase, this is about almost $600,000 when you add it all up, net all this stuff out. And so that is, I assumed about an $800,000 adjustment in here due to a refunding that we're going to do in May. Or actually, it'll probably be June now. We'll do a June refunding. The rates are still good. And unless there's a blow up in the market, they're likely stay good enough, and where the $800,000 assumption should be fine. Hopefully the rates will stay as good as they are right now, and that savings will help us in the next few years. And the original estimate was that we would be able to see about $500,000 in each of the next few years, in addition to the $800,000 this year. But that was at the best time of the market. I don't think we'll, I don't think we're there now, but I think, the 800 is certainty, and we'll spread it out over the next few years. It probably won't be at 500, but it'll probably be more like 350 or 300 per year. And we do that to kind of take the edge off the spikes in any one year on the debt service as it goes up. Okay.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on the debt items that are on page 311? Any questions? Any questions from the ex officio members? Okay, seeing none. Any last comment on debt?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay.
With that, we'll move on page 313. The next item is contingency. So, Mr. Sandler.
Contingency on page 313 is proposed by the mayor is $262,468. And that's a decrease of about $70,000. That is certainly, it would be ideal if we had more in there, but at the end of the day, usually when we get the budget done, there's always last minute adjustments and changes, and we adjust it through here rather than adjust all the tables and charts that we've built out. And because we'd have to make a lot of adjustments to those things. Changing it in one line is usually the quickest way to do it. But anyways, go ahead.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on contingency? Any questions from ex officio members on contingency?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Cheney's.
thank you. David, you may have already answered my question because I was looking at it, 262,468 sounds like a calculated number that you actually know what makes up the figures, because usually it'd be a rounded number.
Yeah,
So-
I
so
started off
basically
with a
what you-
rounded number.
So basically what you're saying is any tweaks that you had to make throughout the budget, you just did it in here.
Yeah, and that's, you know, because as we go through and we're doing our final checks, we realize, we needed to add something up here for this or that. And then we say, all right, you know, let's do it up there, and then we'll have to take it out of here. And so that's why this looks like a really oddball number.
So let me ask you this question. What did you start with?
Well, it was closer to the original number. I try not to change it too much, and then we work down from there. But you know, I think I started at 300. Honestly, I don't think I started at 333. I think I started at 300.
All right, so you increase, all right. So actually,
I
you
spread,
reduced
in other
your
words,
budget.
yeah, in other words, I spread probably 38 around in different areas.
Okay. All right, thank you, David. I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Cheney. Any further questions from the ex officio members? Nope, seeing none, I will move on. Other financing uses, page 313.
Yep, and other financing areas, the amount proposed by the mayor is $3,559,000, a decrease of $309,922. That's really a couple different things. The transfer out to animal control went up by $19,000. As you know, the bulk of that is really related to a couple of things. You know, where we've got a new building over there, we've got to maintain the cleaning. We never had a cleaning service over there. We're gonna have a cleaning service. It's bigger. Yeah, there's just a lot of things. We just don't know how much it's going to cost us to operate that building in a year. So we put some money over there. Plus the other costs, our interest. I think interest earnings are down by 3,000 over there, and that's throughout the whole. You know, all the budgets are interest earnings are down. So that's why that one went up. The transfer out. You know, to capital is down by 328. So that 3.25 should be familiar, because that's what we went to the council with back in December. And so we, you know, we stuck to that number, and that's where that number came up with.
Okay, any committee members have any questions? No, seeing none. Any ex officio members with questions? Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, I think we
yeah,
already
we're
talked
down
about
to
this one.
the internal service accounts. I think we kind of talked about these generally.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did kind of talk about the internal service funds, but Dan, if you want to go through those quickly and talk about them, and in a
I
general
refer
sense,
people
we
to
can.
page 417. I think we're at
417. Yeah. Let me see. 417. 417. All right. Union welfare benefits. Right here. I think this is page 417. So on page 417, let me just go to the budget. I think I'll be quicker. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go to 418 for the Internal Service Fund Risk Management Employee Benefits. Yeah. For all of that, and we can go through item by item, but basically for the entire section, we have as proposed by the mayor, 19,251,666. And that represents an increase by, I think, a million, or I'm sorry, what's it? $700,000 roughly.
Yeah, just over 600,000.
Yeah. So, and overall, the biggest drivers in this area, as I think we talked about, is employee health insurance. That's about 600,000. And, union welfare went up just a small amount, 25,000. But the other big driver is in, well, that's it. I mean, that's the big driver for this one, is employee health insurance.
Okay, do any committee members have any questions regarding the risk management employee benefits in the internal service fund?
Yeah, Mr. Fox.
Councilman Salvatore.
So I've been trying to listen intently, and what I think I heard you say, Dan, if you're still there, oh, there you are. You moved over to the other side of my screen. So this inter-service, this fund, internal service fund, is a compilation of all the areas?
Yes,
Or-
all the health insurance for all the different funds.
Right,
paid
because
out
like
of
earlier when we spoke in the 02 fund, the health insurance went up. It was at $10 million. It went up by, I think, something like 522,000. So that 522,000 is the biggest part of this whole 638. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And actually, Councilman Chianese asked the question. I didn't realize that we were self-insured. But even if we're self-insured, are we able to go out and shop around to get better prices? Do we do that? Or is that not something we can do because we're self-insured?
We can do that. We've done that in the past. We haven't done it in a few years for several reasons. Mainly because I hate to say it this way, but we have one consultant that used to say the claims are the claims. So whatever the claims are, we're really not going to save unless they have negotiated, discounts with, different providers. You don't save too much on the claims between a Cigna and Anthem. I'm trying to think of
It comes down to the administrative cost after that, and whatever fee the third-party administrator is going to charge you. And of course you do get, on the prescription stuff, you get rebates, that kind of stuff, and it's all worked into it.
Mhm.
But clearly the general fund, because it's the largest fund, carries the biggest share of the cost. And, that's why that stands out. That's why we usually focus so much time on that piece of it. But you're right. I mean, of the 630 something, 500 and some odd is related to the general fund, and the others is spread out mostly to water, because that's where the staff is, and then a little bit to animal control, but not much in sewer because they're staffed by Veolia. But we've done very, very well. Our track record as far as the percentage increase year over year has been phenomenally low as a self-insured councilman. And this year has been the highest it's been since, I think, the first year in 2014. And if we have another year like this, I think, obviously we'd have to think about it a little bit, but really, it ends up being about a 5.6% increase. Maybe it's 5.9, I can't remember, but it's still below 6, which is not bad. And, considering now next year is going to be the tell, because of the impact of everything going on. And I think that's going to be for everybody. Everybody's wondering what's going to happen next year. You know, are we going to get blasted by all the claims, and who's to say? You know, it's going to be. I guess if you're locked in a plan, you might get lucky in that first year, but they're going to blast you the second year. You know.
Yeah.
So
Has there been, do we still offer more traditional plans, or has there been a move to high deductible plans?
oh yeah.
That seems to be a big trend in insurance.
Yeah, Dan, it was at 50-50 now. It's better than 50-50.
It's probably better than 50-50 because DMEA and fire are all in the high deductible plan.
Yep.
Police have an option for the older employees. Newer employees are all a high deductible plan, and they're higher than 50-50 in the police.
So we're probably looking more like what, 60-40. You know, if maybe a little better than that, but and that's certainly worked in our favor as well. You know, and I think everybody's, as far as they've had a pretty stable rate, you know, for the last several years. This year will be probably the largest increase they've seen in quite some time, and even so, it's not that large.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Salvatore. Any further questions on these items?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Rotella.
Thanks. Through the chair to David, Director St. Hilaire. You know, there's a reason why we went to self-insuring. We didn't just have a bad year. We were getting slaughtered every single year. The percentage increases were just off the charts, and there was nothing we could do about it.
Right.
So we took this great leap into the unknown and decided to self-insure. And I for my money anyway, at the end of the day, we made the right decision.
Oh, by far. Oh, yeah. So we're looking at double-digit increases.
It was terrible.
It was terrible. And that wasn't just, you know, maybe. That was a definitely, we're looking at double, and it wasn't just for that year. And we made the right move at the right time. And we really haven't, the thing is, it wasn't just that one move. It was, you know, we've been making moves every year to make sure we manage it so we don't get another bad year that would, you know, deplete our reserves. You know, we tweak a little bit, but that's why our rates have been so, you know, our increases have been so minimal. And you know, and you know, here we're talking about 5 or 6% as being, whew, that's high. That's actually funny, you know, when you think about what it was.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, nerves of steel. We knew we were going to have a bad year. We just have to get through it, and we'll go back. But I think we made the right move. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Rotella. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll just move on. The next group of items is in the Internal Service Fund, Workers' Compensation on page 421. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Yep. Workers' Comp, 421. The mayor's proposed is $2,925,000. And that looks like it's flat, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Dan?
It's down slightly by $70,000.
Oh, 70. Okay, 70. Thank you. I didn't really adjust this table properly to show the internal control, the internal service fund, so I do apologize for that.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Any questions from the ex officio members? Okay, with that, we'll move to the final group of items for the evening. We've got the pension related items in the Internal Service Fund on page 423. Mr. St. Hilaire.
423, as proposed by the mayor, is $25,711,000. $711,000. All right, and really that is a rather significant increase. It's driven, as we discussed, primarily by increases in DB plan of about $1.1 million. And of course, this is the retirees fund. So it's also driven by increases in health insurance related to retirees and ARC, or OPEB ARC. So there's an increase, another $1.1 million there. So it's about $2.2 million that's going up. And that's all related to retirees. So look at the, when you look at this particular fund, this is just solely related to retirees, and that costs are increasing by about $2.2 million.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the committee on these items on page 423? Any questions by any ex officio members on the items on page 423? Okay, seeing none, I just want to thank Mr. Garrick and Mr. Hussein Alair on the effective presentation of those items and management of that throughout the year. Those were the items we've had for this meeting. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll close the discussion. I'd like to refer to the committee members for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the City Council the adoption of the General Government 2 budget as presented, with the addition of a 2.5% raise for the treasurer, which is consistent with the Constitution of the State of Connecticut for the office in the succeeding year, which would be from December 1st, 2021 to November 22nd, to November 2022, with the second commencing July 1st, 2022.
motion's been made by Mr. Knapp. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Palmer, seconded by Mr. Palmer. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, I'll try your minds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any nays? No nays. Are there any abstentions? No abstentions. The motion carries unanimously. I'd like to thank everyone involved in preparing for the meeting and for their input this evening, especially Mr. St. Hilaire, for all of the effort from you and the team, not only to manage the city's finances, but to arrange the material for presentation for the council and to help us understand everything that's going on with all of the line items. I really appreciate that. And I think all of our council members on the committee and elsewhere appreciate that. Thank you so much. With that, the chair seeks a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Knapp. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that? Mr. Alves?
Yep.
Seconded by Mr. Councilman Alves. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of you in the office there still, too.